Hello and welcome to the Durham Talents channel, where we are digging up buried talents with the infinite banking concept as conceived and described in R. Nelson Nash's book, Becoming Your Own Banker. Today we're going to cover part 1, and it'll be beginning with page 11 in his Becoming Your Own Banker book of Becoming Your Own Banker. Now, he starts this section of the book on page 11 by asking the question, what would happen, essentially, if all of the world's money were evenly distributed to everyone after 5, 10, 20, 50 years? What would ultimately happen? What do you think would happen? Well, he walks that out by simply saying that it would seem that a minority would end up with the majority of the money, and the majority of the people would end up with a minority of the money. So one way or another, the money would find its way back to the hands of a smaller fraction than a majority. Why is that? Well, as I contemplated rereading that, and I've read it several times, but I thought of some things that I'd both heard recently, just in my daily goings about, and things that I'd heard before. I remember hearing things like, the poor you will have with you always. Jesus Christ said that. Someone said recently that poor people have poor ways. Now, I'm not trying to make any judgments, but I tend to agree that it would seem to be the course that some folks end up with more money than others. And I think that it's valuable to ask why. Again, I'm not trying to be judgmental, but if we can learn why that may be, I think that we could benefit from it. So let's look at then the banking function, because again, that's another subject that Nash addressed on page 11, is the banking function and how folks just don't know about it, don't understand it. And I know that that was the case for me. I'd never even heard of the term, the banking function. Sure, I had qualified plans at the time that I first read Nash's book. I had a 401k, I had a state retirement, I had checking accounts, saving accounts. I was just doing what I believe is pretty conventional. And I'd never considered the banking function because I wasn't even aware of it. I was literally ignorant to there being a banking function. So I believe that's the case, that we just don't know about it, and for sure we don't understand it. I mean, the idea that our capital has a cost of money is not well known. That our capital has a cost of money. That money also must flow. If we do look at commercial banks, there's not a product there, okay? It's simply a place where money is amassed, where it's banked up, okay? Bank, blood bank, food bank, river bank, snow bank. It's just accumulated there. Money at a commercial, conventional bank, it's accumulated there. The deposits are, and this is really crucial, the deposits are liabilities to the bank, because a bank has to promise something in exchange for those deposits. And currently, right now, in the lowest interest environment that we've ever been in, it's a pittance. At best, it's a pittance. But for sure, right now, it's a pittance to the depositor. But the bank will make money regardless, even aside from the fact that we're on a fiat currency and dollars are printed, not being tied to any kind of standard such as a gold standard. I digress a little bit right there perhaps, but it's worth noting as well and mentioning as a side note if nothing else. But the deposits to the commercial bank are liabilities. They have to do something with that money. But the loans that the bank makes for our remodels, our mortgages, our vehicles, personal loans, whatever the case may be, those are assets to the bank. And I challenge you to do this. Many times it has to be put on the bank's website, perhaps not in the most visible place, but how loans are assets to the banks. Hence the collateral and all the paperwork. So I digress a little bit perhaps, but money must flow in and out of those banks. The flow of money on page 11 in Nash's work is related to the water on the Earth's surface. So take, for example, just like the oceans account for approximately 75% of the Earth's surface, there are rivers and ponds and streams and lots of other bodies of water as well. But what Nash points out there is that there is one pool of water. Sure, the sun may evaporate water. It may then condensate in the skies and then precipitate back to the earth and roll off the mountains and the hills and perhaps land back in a pond or a stream or a brook or a lake. But eventually, one way or another, even if at some point the water goes through our body, I mean, we drink water. We're mostly made up of water. But the water will eventually end up back in that one pool. So he points out that it would be foolish to consider the rains in the eastern side of the world irrelevant to the western side, or the northern to the southern, to this continent to that continent. It's interconnected, all of it. It's one system. It's one pool of water. And that's what Nash tries to point out concerning money then, is that money flows. We all have a certain amount of money that flows into our system, whatever that may look like currently, and back out of it. Money comes through our hands. Well, his question and my question is, how much then of the banking function do we control in our lives? How have we provided for our need for finance? Where do we put our capital? How much control do we have over that? Do we own that entity? How are we accounting for the banking function in our lives? And he even gives a reference, if I may. For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. Jeremiah 29:11. I love that Nash includes scripture that he thought was relevant, and I agree, relevant to the topics, the specific particular topics that he covers in discussing how to unlock the infinite banking concept. How can we create our own privatized banking system? Now, I'll leave you with these questions. If the earth's money were distributed evenly, what would that look like? What would it look like in your particular case? Now, with things such as they are, let's recognize the reality of there's one pool of water and there's one pool of money. So how much of the banking function can you account for? Your need for finance. How much of that do you control? So this has been an absolute pleasure for me. I do look forward to continuing our book review of Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash, Unlocking the Infinite Banking Concept. If you have any questions or comments, I look forward to seeing those. And also, if you'd like to have a conversation about how you could implement the infinite banking concept into your household, your business, your investing, I look forward to having that conversation. You can reach me at 828-817-4223, or you can email durhamtalents@gmail.com. This has been an absolute pleasure for me. I look forward to our next conversation. Have a great day. Take care.